Hello again, I'm Stephen Wells, the host of the Motoring Weekly podcast for the Australian Historic Road and Racing community. This is episode 190, and in the last episode I previewed this year's Sydney Harbour Concours. Well, today I had the pleasure of attending day one, held yet again on Cockatoo Island in the middle of the harbour. What I like about this event is the breadth of machines on display, from cars that were built during the interwar years through to the very latest road and race cars. The big unveiling early in the morning was the McLaren LMDh hypercar called Project Endurance that will race in 2027 in the FIA World Endurance Championship, as well as a customer car with its own series. This car has been developed by the road car business and also the F1 race team run by Zach Brown. The chassis will be constructed by Dallara in Italy, who build their own Stradale, as well as the MC Pure and Cielo for Maserati. The concourse is only the fourth time this car has been shown in public. And after seeing the McLaren, there were a wide range of cars to be viewed and admired, so I only got 2 interviews in during the morning, but they were amazing restoration stories. Peter Vandersluys of specialist restoration company Re.Creation, whose team has produced an absolutely stunning correct early 60s Lancia Flaminia GT by Zagato that has real provenance and a race history. We talk not just about the restoration, but the amount of research to find the correct parts and uncovering the history of this beautiful car. So I'm at the Sydney Harbour Concours with Peter Vandersluys, who works for Re.Creation down in Victoria.
Automotive, yes.
And he has a very, very beautiful Lancia in front of me. And I'd like you to describe it briefly, and then we'll get into some of the guts of it.
Okay, well, the car is a very rare car. The Series 1s, there were 99 cars built. This was one of 9, we believe, and then one of 5 that had the 3 carburetors, and then one of 1 that had the Perspex treatment around the windows. When the car came to us, it was complete but sad, and we were given the task of restoring the car, returning it to left-hand drive, and the journey along the way has been incredible.
Yep. So a Lancia Flaminia Sport by Zagato?
Yes. And they ran that series through from 58 through to 65, and I think in total they built something like 640 cars.
Right. And this one's got that racing pedigree as well?
Yes, this car, as far back as we could get, raced in a hill climb in 63 and then was entered in the Targa Florio under the Squadra Corsa banner, which was a newly formed pseudo racing team. Lancia had gotten out of racing. They then formed the Squadra Corsa, which went on then to win, I think, 11 World Rally Championships. So the car was one of 3 Flaminias entered in the race. Unfortunately, during practice, the car was badly crashed and written off, and we have a magazine article written by Dennis Jenkins, who was a famous driver and writer at the time. So the car then disappeared and we believe was repaired. We don't know where, we don't know how, but in 1965, John's brother Salvatore was in Italy on holiday and walked into a small garage in Milan, and there was a shiny red Lancia. He purchased the car, drove it around Italy for about 6 or 7 months. Then it was put on a boat, and it came back to Australia. Now, when it arrived, it had to be converted to right-hand drive for registration purposes. So the conversion was pretty ordinary, as we found as we pulled the car apart. And there were a lot of things that were less than satisfactory over the journey of the crash. There were a lot of things that had been repaired and replaced. After a while, the car broke down, sat in a field for some 9 years, and John recovered it, eventually recovered it after digging it out of the field. It was engulfed by weeds. It sat at his place for a little while. He commissioned a restoration in the 90s, which again, was a little bit suspect. We were disappointed when we took the car apart, but it drove around Sydney for a little while. John got busy, put the car away. He had seen a car that we restored for Motor Classica in 2018 and rang me and said, would we be interested in doing the car? We'd never done a Lancia before, so it was an interesting start. I mean, you know, when you've been restoring cars for a long time, as I have, you do your Ferraris, your Rolls Royces, your Porsches, your Maseratis, but Lancia was something that had never been on my radar. So the innovation of these early cars with a De Dion rear axle, transaxle, four-wheel disc brakes, one of the first production V6s, it was far ahead of anything really. You know, the technology for the day was better than Ferrari, it was better than Maserati, but they didn't seem to have the traction that these big names had. So the journey started by talking to Lancia people, because that's the only way we really could find out what we had. And then some years later, John had said that he had some paperwork somewhere. And eventually when he found that paperwork, we had a name. And from that name, we traced it back to finding out its history with the Targa Florio. We got in touch with the original owner's family. They provided us with some more details about the fact that Gilberto had been contracted to Lancia to drive for 2 years, that eventually his father, Bruno, was concerned about his son's exploits, and after the crash, and this is what the family has told us, Bruno said to Gilberto, no more racing. So Gilberto went on then to join his father in business, and that business still runs today and is run by Gilberto's son Gabriel. Now, we have been invited back to Italy by Gabriel to honour his father, and we're hoping we can do that.
So not only have you been doing effectively a nut and bolt restoration and all, I guess, body work and the whole shooting match, you've gone back and looked at the provenance of the vehicle in quite a lot of detail.
I would sit in the living room with my computer and my wife would say, are you working again? And to me, that's not work, it's fun. You know, finding those rabbit holes and going down them and hitting a dead end. We found names. Because of Gilberto's unusual name, Bagnesacco, there were very few of them. So when we found his daughter and son, his daughter was in New York at the time, his son in Turin, we were able to get a little bit of information from them, but then keep working through the Lancia heritage and their racing background. It didn't give us an awful lot, but it gave us enough to form the basis of our research. Only last week I found a little bit more about the number of cars, the number of Series 1 cars that were built with the 3 carburetors, because the 3 carburetors appeared on the Series 2 cars. So once we found that, it gave us a little bit more of an inkling as to how rare this car is. So it is one of 9, one of 5, one of 1, which to John, he always knew it was special and important, but now we have something that has real provenance around the world. Not just here in Australia. And if we get the opportunity to show it around the world, we'd like to do that.
Well, certainly, you know, here at the Sydney Harbour Concours, it's under lighting, and I actually stopped to take a photo of it, which is how I ended up talking to you guys, because it just was an attention grabber, the way that the light is shining on the vehicle at the moment. And then talking to John earlier, saying, you know, do you go up to Europe and maybe get some of the family to come and look at it?
Well, the family have expressed interest in seeing the car when it comes back. When I first contacted Gaia, Gilberto's daughter, they couldn't believe that their papa's car was still in existence. Of course, they weren't born when he raced the car, but they had grown up with stories about Lancia. Gilberto's wife, Marika, had learned to drive in a Lancia. Gaia remembers sitting on his lap steering a Lancia. So they were Lancia people. Unfortunately, Gilberto passed in 2019, and had we have had the name, because we didn't get that till probably 2021, had we have had the name, there might have been an opportunity to talk to him, but alas, we didn't. So we've done the next best thing. We've talked to the family. John has a lot of memories of the car, and I'm sure if we are to get to Italy, we will find people that may know a bit more.
So with these cars, Zagato builds the body.
Yes.
So do they actually construct the whole car, or do they just do the body and get it back to the factory for completion?
These cars started as a Flaminia GT, and
Yeah.
I think there's one or two here.
Yeah.
So the Flaminia GT, basically unibody, was sent to Zagato with no body.
Right.
When we removed the body from the panels, we found a lovely number written in crayon, which we've photographed. We've got every number that was on the car. Then sent to Zagato, who built the bodies.
Yeah.
So of the first series, as I said, there were 99 cars. The second series, they changed the front because faired-in headlights became illegal for some reason in Italy. So they went to an upright headlight.
Yeah.
And when we first got the car, of course, none of that was in place. And we struggled. The interesting thing about this car, it has a VIN plate that says it's a 1962 car, and it's not.
Yeah.
But Lancia, when they sold it to Gilberto, must have needed to register it or record it.
Yeah.
And when we first got the car, I was baffled because I ran the numbers. It's a 1962 car.
Yeah.
Then why did it have a Series 1 front? Why did it have the features that it did? Because none of the Series 2 cars were modified for racing.
Yeah.
So that was part of the journey too, of trying to work out what had happened.
Yeah.
And we only can guess to a certain degree, but it's a pretty good guess.
Yeah. So your business does a lot of this work in restoring cars. So you've got a team of mechanical engineers and bodywork specialists and other bits and pieces. What's your typical day looking like?
Well, of the 9 people we employ, one of our panel guys is German, one is New Zealand, and one is an English guy. The paint shop has some Australians. We've got about 12 cars on the go at any given time. The day can be pleasant, or it can be haphazard, or it can be downright frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hands-on trade.
Yeah.
It's a dirty trade, it's a hard trade, and as you get older, it becomes harder again. Excuse me. Sorry.
This is always the problem with coming to classic car shows.
Well, I don't understand why people want to open and close doors, but people do. And if they don't do it properly with an aluminium body, they can damage it.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, where were we?
We were at a day in the life of Re.Creation, and what sort of cars do you actually work on? Are they, obviously this is a Lancia which has got provenance, it's got race heritage. Do you do other Italian sports cars? You were talking about Ferrari and Maserati and stuff earlier, but is it just this era, or do you do others as well?
We find things come in runs. At the moment, we've got 2 Lamborghinis. We've got an LP400 Countach, one of the 7 right-hand drive cars that were delivered to Australia. We've got a Jalpa that came in from South Africa that unfortunately caught fire and has been brought down to repair all that.
Yeah.
We've got a very unusual car in a similar vein to this, only it's French, and that is an FV4 Facel Vega.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's one of 7 ever built with the 392 Hemi and the 4-speed.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part about this car is that it was originally owned by Irwin Shaw, who was an American playwright who moved to France. We have most of the history from new. His wife bought him the car, and it was delivered to the hotel he was living in. We don't have his original license plate, but when he sold the car to Marcel de la Vera, who was a French monarchist, we have the number plate that he had with the car. Thank you. The car was driven by Irwin for about 5 years. Marcel drove the car for about 20 years. We found the engine block had frozen because Irwin was a keen skier and would ski with the glitterati and royalty at Cloisters. So when the car came in, we knew a little bit about the history. We've since found out a little bit more. The car had been sitting in a shop, a very famous French restoration shop, and Marcel didn't pay his bills. So we have all the correspondence. It was then sold to a couple of French guys who were going to restore it. They never did, and we were able to secure it in 2017. So that's going to be a car that will be of a similar ilk to this car. it's a very different car, but one of 7 with history, and the owner's very passionate about the way we're restoring it. It's going to have a few little modern cons, but it's going to be stunning.
Yeah.
On any given day, it might be we have 2 300 SL Roadsters in the workshop, a couple of E-Type Jaguars. So depending on our workflow, where we need to move cars into the paint shop, whatever, we do that accordingly. We have a group of mechanics that we bring in. We don't do mechanical in-house, though many of our guys have mechanical ability, but we rely on specialists.
Yep.
We've got a little group of people that are very important to us, and they're the ones that we go to. The most unfortunate part about that is that none of us are getting any younger.
Yeah.
So what we look at is, if we can bring in other people into that fold, how do we do that? Where do we find them?
Yeah.
And that's becoming increasingly difficult in any market, whether it be in America, in Italy, in Australia. Good tradesmen that are passionate about what they do are becoming harder to find.
And that's something I think a lot of organisations have recognised, that apprenticeships need to be recreated to get those older skills back in usage, because so many people, especially sort of the younger generations, are more used to technology, and they're probably not that used to using their hands in metalwork and other bits and pieces. And I think when you get people introduced to that, they actually enjoy it because they can see what they're creating.
One of the things that we find, and you're exactly right, one of the things that we find when it comes to fabrication, there's a lot of people interested in that creative aspect. Painting, not so much, although it is when you look at the car, it is a very creative job. But you've got to have a passion to get to the level that these cars are finished like. You've got to be passionate. We've got 1 apprentice at the moment. We've had up to 3 or 4 at different times, but finding young kids that want to do that is becoming increasingly difficult. And the government don't make it easy, because apprentice wages are set very low. They're set low because a business like mine can't make money from an apprentice in the first maybe 2 or 3 years. You might be lucky and have a kid by his 3rd year, he can make you money. And we do have that young man at the moment. But it is difficult. Our average age in the workshop now is probably mid to late 40s, which is not bad. But if you're averaging, that means a few of the guys, such as myself, are older. Where that takes the older people, as getting up and down and in and out of cars becomes harder for us, it's a bit hard to say. We rely a little bit on the younger people, and I find that I'm relying on my guys to do things that once upon a time, I'll do that, and now I go, can you lift that for me? Because you have to be sensible about it. But it's not a dying trade, but it's becoming even more specialised.
And certainly from what you've brought today at the concourse, the work is unbelievable. It is absolutely stunning. Thank you, Peter, for your time.
My pleasure.
I hope that you walk away with a gong with this car over the weekend, because it deserves one. It is an unbelievable vehicle.
Thank you. Of the cars that we've restored over the journey, we believe this is the pinnacle of that journey. However, the next car we do, we hope will better this, which is going to be pretty hard.
I will look forward to that one in a few years then.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you. My second interview was with Nick Gracchini, whose amazing Toyota Celica GT is unique in Australia, being the only one shipped in. Nick also worked with Peter Vandersluys at Re.Creation to turn this car into a period-correct restoration, including every nut and bolt. The car has been featured in a number of car magazines since it first landed in Australia, and Nick also talks about the history of the car and how he spent time on turning it into a showstopper. I'm now with Nick, who's got a gorgeous Toyota Celica GT, and it's one of the first cars I took a photo of this morning when I came in off the ferry, because my grandmother had a similar ilk Celica, but not in this condition and not this particular model. So Nick, can you talk about the car first and a bit of its history?
Thanks, Stephen. Yes, I can indeed. So this is a 1971 GT Celica. It was originally owned by a guy called Ken Huffam. Ken Huffam was the managing director of AMI, Australian Motor Industries, in Australia back in the early days. And later in 1980, Toyota took over AMI and bought them out, and it just became Toyota Australia. But back when this car was new, they were looking at bringing a two-door sports car to Australia and looked at what the options were. And one of the options was a Toyota Celica. So Ken Huffam spoke to Mr. Toyota in Japan and got an idea about what could we look at. And they looked at this car, the GT, because the GT was considered the pinnacle at the top. But when they tried to look at, can we get this car insured in Australia, and it was a young person's car, none of the insurance companies would touch it, because they said the power to weight ratio is too high, too much of a risk. We can insure the Celica, but we'll have to do the lower models. So ET was the base, LT was the second from the bottom, ST was the third from the top, and GT was the very top. So basically the majority of them were sold were LTs, and and there were a few STs, but often they were bought by people a little bit older in a different age bracket, and they could get them insured. But the GTs never came here at all.
So in other words, this is a one of one in the country.
Correct, yes. And when they finished the evaluation, the vehicle was meant to be destroyed and crushed like all evaluation vehicles, but fortunately it stayed in a location for a while, and it avoided the crushes. So it's got no compliance plate at all, and it also sneaked through with a few other cars, and they eventually got released later and sold off later down the track.
Okay. And when did you pick it up?
Well, I would have picked it about 10 years ago, and I came across it when I was on a trip to Tasmania, and I thought, this is absolutely amazing. And I was driving along and I saw the vehicle, and I thought, well, look, I'm going to go to the house, I'm going to knock on the door and talk to them about it, but I've only got one chance to get this right. And if I say the wrong words, they'll tell me to go away. So I sat in the car and thought, well, what am I going to say? I got my ideas together, knocked on the front door, and the wife of the owner came out, and I said, look, I was driving past this, it was an amazing car. Is this your car? She says, no, it's my husband's. The husband came out, had a chat with him, and we spent a long time talking about the car and the like. So I said, look, if I had this car, I would restore it back to original, back to factory, because it's such a unique car. I wouldn't modify it. And he said, that's exactly the words we want to hear, Nick, because everyone we've seen it wants to put a bigger engine in it, chop it, change it, modify it, and that horrifies us.
Yeah, I would, because, if you've had a car for many years, you get attached to them when they become part of the family. So to have somebody that comes in and says, no, we're going to absolutely make it like it came out of the factory, would be music to their ears.
Oh, they definitely loved it. And the great thing was that the owner, his wife and his daughter actually interviewed me before they felt comfortable. And basically the interview finished, and they said, look, give us a phone call tomorrow and we'll tell you the outcome. So I'm sitting at home, I was actually at Mum's house in Tasmania. I'm sitting there just sweating, what are they going to say? And then I rang them and they go, my heart's beating, and they go, yep, you can have the car, Nick, and we would love you to have it.
So it's amazing having to go for a job interview to buy a car.
Exactly right. But the owner, he was absolutely fantastic. He helped me research and find parts. He knew the car so well. And through the whole entire process of getting it together, and it took 3 years and 10 months, he was there for the whole journey. And when the car first got showcased in Motor Classica, he came along, which was quite amazing to have him there. But the interesting thing was, not only did he come along, but I found the son of Ken Huffam, the first original owner of the car. So Ken Huffam's son came along, and of course Ken had passed on because it was a long time ago, 50 plus years. So Ken Huffam was there, the second owner was there, and I was there. So we had all the generations spanning there at Motor Classica in Melbourne at the Royal Exhibition Building.
It's a lovely building. And so, was it a full nut and bolt restoration?
Look, I would say it was, but my goal was I wanted to preserve as much of the originality. Having the interior original, having everything under the bonnet original, having the boot original, that was really important to me. Anyone can modify a car and chop and change things and get something to substitute, but to find the original parts was a challenge. And what I did with restoration of this car was every day, at the end of my day before I went to bed, I would hop on the websites and look at what new parts are in Japan, and I'd buy them. So for 3 years and 10 months, I looked every day religiously to find what I could find and go, oh, I need that part, and I'd buy it and it'll come to Australia.
Yeah. And that really is part of the whole restoration of a car, is finding those parts all over the world. And then, as you said, bringing them back, getting them fitted, making sure that they are absolutely correct for the car. So talk about the GT specifically, because you're saying that the power to weight ratio was too much for young drivers, yet I'd have thought that they could buy a more powerful car, an Ford or a Holden at the time.
Well, it's interesting you should say that. From what I read over the history, that was one of the main issues with insurance companies. Maybe the knowledge of, we had twin cams for a long time in Australia with Alphas and the likes too, but they probably weren't a young person's car. So it's probably the age group of the 18, 19-year-old and having a twin cam. I think the twin cams were like the turbos of the 90s, because a lot of people in the 90s couldn't get a turbo car, but now everyone's got turbo cars because that's what they all are these days.
Yeah. And I think probably they were looking at it and thinking, well, you know, a young kid in one of these sports car, he's going to play up a little bit along the way, and therefore there would be issues around injuries, and potentially for insurance companies there's a fair cost to that.
Oh look, there definitely was, and you've got to keep in mind, I think it was about 1978, that was the highest amount of deaths we had on the roads with motor vehicles, because cars weren't the safe then, and only after we passed that and gone to the 80s, the death rate dropped down. Right. So this is still in the early 70s, and a lot of people were dying on the road, and so that was probably one of the main concerns too.
And talk about the GT model specifically. How did that differ from the ST?
Well, a lot actually. It has a twin cam motor which has got a Yamaha head on it, so that's very unique. Now the twin cam Yamaha motor that it's got is pretty much the equivalent of the same one that they have in the 2000 GT. The 2000 GT is a straight 6-in-line. This is a 4-in-line, right. So it's 2 cylinders less, but the same concept. So having Yamaha design the head on this, an alloy head, was a big difference with that as well. Right.
And then a better, probably more plush trim package, judging by the looks of it?
Definitely. So the car's got power windows. It's got a one-piece headlining, and that was quite... Back in the day, we had the traditional bars and the fabric. So it's got a moulded headlining, which was quite unique for that time. Has the full gauges of, amp meters and oil and full instruments as well. Has an 8-track player, which was quite amazing. And now I've got a lot of 8-track tapes, and I found them in America. So if anyone's looking for 8-track tapes, go to America and you buy them, but you've got to replace the felts on them because the felts don't last. Right. So it's got that too. It's got full carpet on the door trims, courtesy lights on the door, rear window demister as well, 5-speed gearbox, limited slip diff, 2-part tail shaft, and it's got a lot of bling over the car, a lot of stainless steel, and even the wheel trims they've got in the car here, they're overly complex with a plastic centre, alloy, fake nuts, chrome nuts, and then like a Bakelite, and then stainless steel. So held on by 4 screws. So they're over-engineered for wheel trims. I think it would be easy to just make some mag wheels for it, than go to the trouble making those.
But even so, when you look at it and what they did to make these cars in the first place, and you think about how Nissan and certainly Datsun at the time and Toyota were really eating some manufacturers' lunch by bringing these cars in that were unbelievably attractive, reliable, sporty, and people, fell in love with them because they were, again, probably slightly cheaper than a European car, but still with the same desire for performance and, style.
Oh, look, you're definitely right with that. And the pricing was probably okay. It was around $3,200 from memory back in the day, and that was still sort of affordable for people to purchase a car. But I think the amount of options like a pop-up aerial and all the things that this had back in the day, you couldn't get. A lot of the Australian vehicles, unfortunately, at the time were a little bit more agricultural and a little bit more rudimentary. So you got more for your buck with Japanese cars.
Yeah. And are you a Toyota man, or have you got a range of vehicles? I did I remember earlier you said you got a Jaguar XK140 as well.
Definitely. I've got an XK Jaguar 140. Absolutely a lovely car too. It, like the Celica, has its own story, which we go into another time. But it was last driven in 1962, and I picked it up after it had been in the barn. And yes, it had original barn dust over it. And I just recommissioned it, got it back on the road. Didn't restore it, but did a pure restoration to the preservation to the vehicle.
Yeah. And I was saying earlier to you that my grandmother, apart from having a green Celica next to it, was an XK150S.
Wow.
in the same garage, and the Celica was used for the day trips and pottering around until she could no longer drive. So, and that was one of the reasons why, as soon as I saw it, I took a photo, because it reminded me of going up to my grandmother's and seeing this beautiful British sports car, and then the interloper next to it.
Look, it's funny you should say that. When this car was at Motor Classica, it was an amazing event. The car won the People's Choice Award. It also won Best in Class, and it also was a finalist for the Best Restoration of the Year. But when I opened the bonnet at Motor Classica in Melbourne, people would flock and look underneath the bonnet, and it was like seagulls to a chip. It was really quite amazing. And everyone would say, Nick, my mum had one of these, my brother had one of these, I learned to drive one of these. Everyone had a Celica story, and I was actually taken back a little bit, because everyone was swamping me, asking me questions about it, and I didn't realise at the time it had such a big appeal, and everyone had a story. And at Motor Classic, there's some beautiful cars like we have here today, but some of those Bentleys, which are 1920s Bentleys, the majority of the public can't relate to those cars.
Yeah.
Where a car like this they can relate to, and if it's been lifted up to the next level, it attracts them even more to it.
Thank you for your time, Nick, and talking about the car. It's parked with some other pieces of kit around it, but it certainly stands out on its own.
Thank you, Stephen. Lovely to speak to you today.
Thanks a lot. So check out the Motoring Weekly Instagram page for some of the pictures of the day. And that's all for now. Check in for another set of interviews tomorrow.